So one of the main topics I wanted to speak about today is that of mental health. I want to cover a little bit about what it is. I want to talk about recognizing it in other people, how we might be able to help other people, and also a little of how we might be able to help ourselves. But I just want you to imagine that it's me and you. We're having a beer or a glass of wine or coffee or a cup of tea or something, and we're just having a conversation. So the first thing I just want to get out of the way, which is why do I think I've got a right to talk about mental health? Well, the first thing I want to say is that I think everybody should talk about mental health. I think it's one of those topics that is so much better than it was. So much better. Things really have moved forward. But we still have a long way to go. My particular experience with mental health goes back about 10 years. I was on a placement doing some training for something which I was undertaking at the time, and that involved a couple of major placements that kind of got me interested and really exposed to this. The first one was with one of our military organisations in the UK. It was actually the RAF. That was interesting and insightful. But the one that turned out to be the most surprise was only supposed to be a 3-month placement, but I ended up spending almost 4 years working on a psychiatric unit. Now, it wasn't full-time, but I was involved very heavily in that environment. And in that environment, we had a men's ward, a women's ward, there was a ward for the elderly, and there was also a mother and baby unit as well. I didn't spend any time on the older person's ward. I was more involved in the men and women and the mother and baby unit. And as a result of that, I got to spend some time with junior doctors who were on placement, attending some of their discussions. One of such is where they were discussing the epidemiology of psychosis. It was quite interesting to get some insight into one very narrow specific field. And another time I spent time with the A&E liaison. So this is when people come in having self-harmed. They are assessed by one of the mental health experts to ascertain the appropriate level of help. Right, let me just focus on this junction now. I was with them every step of the way. It was a privilege to learn, to be with them, to build the trust of the service users, and to learn something. And it's remained with me, and it's something which I don't talk about too much openly because, well, there are reasons why, as you can imagine. But there are times when the skills that I've learned have come in useful, and that's what I want to share with you today a little bit about. Now, before we get into all of that, something else I just want to mention is that mental health is not something simple. It's not a thing. Now, what I mean by that, and this is really difficult to articulate, I haven't written this down, so bear with me as I try. One person's experience of mental health might not work, and what happened and how they got through it might not be the right thing for everyone, even if there are very similar circumstances. And what I mean by that is a lot of people talk about mental health today in terms of struggling, because we are in a world that demands a lot of us. There's news items, there's debt, we're borrowing money, there are wars, there are struggles all the time, and life itself is quite challenging. You could be a single parent, you could be someone who suffered from trauma in childhood, you could be someone who's been in the military and exposed to a post-traumatic stress disorder. You might be a young mum who maybe has experienced mental health issues in the past, and then with a child experienced postnatal depression. There are people who might be struggling with schizophrenia, or people who actually are really kind of trying to grapple with psychosis. So each of those different types of mental health issues need addressing in very specific ways, as you can imagine. And it's not easy to say that this is the answer to all of them. But also I wanted to mention them all because I think it's worth reading and looking them up. There are some great websites now, and I'm in the UK, so most of my experience is based in the UK. Looking at the audience on my YouTube channel, it seems that a lot from the US and India, and that's possibly the link with Royal Enfield. But yeah, check out the websites in your country to kind of become more familiar with those different environments. And you yourself may have some very direct experience yourself personally with any of those. But let's talk about some numbers now, because I think it's worth us just having a bit more of an understanding that something like 1 in 8 people globally, this is on the World Health Organization's website, 1 in 8 people globally struggle with mental health. 1 in 8. That is a phenomenally high number, I thought anyway. 1 in 8 people. Now, you could be in a room of 8 people and you might think, well, one of us is likely to be struggling. The truth is that maybe all 8 of you are at various levels with different things. But one of the sad things is that there's still a stigma, and people are still discriminated against based on mental health, which is why people struggle to talk about it. Now, I can't solve that, but I'm hoping that by us listening and talking and learning and educating ourselves, we might become better at that. Now, of all the different aspects of mental health I've just alluded to there very quickly, each one of those has different branches, and each branch is a specialisation. So, of course, I can't cover any of that. I'm just a guy, and we're just having a coffee or a tea or a brew. Remember, this is not a professional discussion. Let me just focus on the junction. But what I want to talk about is one particular area, which is those of us who struggle a little bit. And we can do a lot more to help ourselves, and we can do a lot more to help others around us. So if we've got 1 in 8 globally that are struggling with mental health, one of the really sad statistics that I learned recently was that in 2023, I was just making sure that van didn't pull out on me. In 2023, over 7,000 suicides in the course of the year. I think the number was 7,055 in the United Kingdom alone. Now, 7,055 equates to about 19 suicides a day. Now, that's heartbreaking, because each of those stories is not just the individual who's taken their life, who's struggled. Each one of those stories is like a hard rock into still waters, affects people far and wide. It's just devastating. Now, we might not be able to solve all of the problems, but I think with educating ourselves, talking more, we might be able to help reduce that number considerably. But how? Well, there's a few things I want to talk about. One is how we help ourselves, and the second thing is how we can help others. Right, I'm coming up to another junction here, so I'm going to focus on this. I don't mind talking when I'm riding, but there are certain points when one needs to really pay attention. I'm a bloke, I don't multitask too well. There we go. No one behind me, I'm in a 30. The national speed limit ahead and the open road, wonderful. Okay, so where should we start? Let's talk about helping others. Now, one of the things that I've been blessed with, sorry, look at that view, absolutely beautiful. Honestly, it's times like this, just absorbing the moment, is just worth stopping for. I'm going to talk a bit more about that later. But helping others, because of my background, there's not too many know about what I've done, and in fact I've been very lean with the details, even in that discussion just then. But maybe a few more we'll learn after this video goes out. If it goes out, we'll see. But being asked to talk to other people is something which I'm very happy to do. Now, I'm not a counsellor, I'm not a professional medical psychologist, psychiatrist, or any of those things, but what I am is someone who has experience and has been trained to listen, and also has learnt to have a bit of confidence. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. I want to talk to you about just having more confidence in speaking to those who might need to speak to you. Now, you may have someone who you think might be struggling, and if you think they might be struggling, guess what? There's a good chance that they will be. There's a car right behind me and I don't want to hold him up anymore. I'm hoping that he's not going down here. Good, he's gone straight on. He was very close. Now, what are the signs to look out for in somebody who you think might be struggling? Well, often it's a change in behaviour. Has their conversation changed? Have they become more absent? Have they gone quiet? Do you no longer see them regularly as you used to? Is their mannerisms changed? Are their eating habits, drinking habits? Anything that you might notice. It's kind of, we're more instinctive about these things than we like to let on. And the question is, well, what do I do? Because I don't want to interfere or get too involved because I might upset them. Well, my advice is absolutely interfere. Now, what I mean by that is gently, but there's no harm in asking open questions. I've noticed that you are struggling lately. Anything you want to share? I've noticed you've not quite seemed the person I'm used to. Would you like to have a conversation sometime? Just gentle invitations, and you'll know straight away if they are interested in talking to you or not, because they'll generally say. But what you need to listen is not just what they say, but the language they use, the body language, the words, because most people don't want to bother you. But you need to know how to listen and really see the signs, and that's something that no one can really teach you. It's something that just human nature, and I'd just say just be open to accepting and be prepared to just tap into your own psyche about what you think is they might be thinking. When I say psyche, I don't mean telepathy. I'm talking about just being sensitive to human nature, and don't be frightened of going in. It's like when someone grieves, you know, when they've lost a loved one. Sometimes we think that we don't want to interfere, we don't want to get too involved. We want to just let them have their space as they grieve. Sometimes we do get involved and we actually talk to them, we're great up to the funeral, and then after the funeral we leave them be and we think, well, they don't want to talk anymore, let's just let them have their space. But in my experience, most people who have a funeral of a loved one find that it just goes so quiet after the funeral. It's almost this big busyness in preparing for it, and then suddenly you're on your own and you're lonely and you're lost, and actually that's often the time when they do need you. So if someone's grieving, do call them after the funeral. Don't be frightened of holding back. If someone you think has changed their attitude, do talk to them, do ask open questions, do invite them to speak, do encourage them to talk. It's a great thing, and that's how you can help others. Now, there's one important part of that I want to really get across, and if you take nothing else away from today, it's this. And it's very important when you're trying to help others. Here's my advice to you, and I want you to listen to these words carefully because you'll need to reflect on them a little bit. Thank you. You cannot fix them. Okay? Let me just repeat that because I want to just make this very clear. You cannot fix somebody's mental health problems. Professionals might be able to, they might be able to, you can't. You could be a very important signpost. You could be the most important person on their path to healing and recovery. And you might be someone who, without the discussion or open questions, they might never have really kind of emerged from this difficulty. So don't underestimate what you can do. But if you start taking the ownership and the responsibility for fixing them, what do you think happens when you don't fix them? What do you think happens when things go wrong? Who is going to struggle with that? I pause there intentionally to let you think. Because in my experience, the most likely person who's going to struggle is you. And the more you feel the burden of trying to fix someone, the more you'll struggle. So it's about self-preservation and boundaries, looking after yourself as much as others. So do reach out, do the right thing. But do be very gentle on yourself. Okay? I hope that makes sense. You might need to think about that a bit more. Because it's not that you don't care, it's just that you're looking after yourself. And that's very important when we reach out, because things do happen and things do go wrong sometimes, and we need to be gentler on ourselves. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. There's lots more discussion and questions, and if we really were having a brew and a tea, I'm sure that we could have a much more extended discussion. And if you know me, or anybody knows me, or if ever you get to meet me and you do have questions, then please do feel free to ask me. I'm very happy to have an open conversation. It might be about you and your struggles with mental health. It might be that you've got a loved one or someone close to you or a friend. I'm very happy to have that discussion. I won't have the answers. I'm not that good, but I'll certainly have dialogue with you, and together maybe we can figure it out. Some of you might have some experience yourselves. I'd love to see them in the comments. And remember, it's not just me that reads the comments. Other people do too, and you never know how that might impact them. But if you really want to share something, do reach out to a friend. You'll be surprised at how many people have been more than willing to talk. Now, one thing I do want to point out, and something that I've learned in all of this, is, and we know this, most of us know this, men are not as good at talking as women. Now my sat-nav's telling me to go right. I think I'm going to go left here. Yeah, we know that men aren't very good at talking. That doesn't mean all men aren't good at talking, and it doesn't mean that all women are good at talking. We can't stereotype and put both into convenient boxes here. It's a simple case that men, generally speaking, aren't that great at talking, and women are much better at it. Right, I'm just going to pull in here a second. Right, I was going to have a little wander, but before we do, I just want to finish this particular topic. Just want to finish off about men and women listening and talking and all of that, and not being stereotypical and putting people into boxes. But here's some statistics for you. So, of the 19 suicides a day I talked about earlier, 7,055 in 2023, which was the highest number since 2009. The 80% of those suicides were men. 80% were men. Now, those seeking help and therapy and talking, the numbers vary, but generally speaking, it's roughly about 8 to 9% of men seek help, and about sort of 15 to 18, depending on what you look at, women seek help. So twice as many women seek help as men, but 80% of men commit suicide. Now, what does that say? Well, you can read it as you like, and I'm not going to be the one who says this is the absolute, because that would be wrong. But what I can say is that women statistically are better at talking than men. So what do we need to do? How can we change that? Well, it's a very hard one, because by nature you can't change someone's behaviour. You know, there's lots of women that aren't good at talking, but we just need to be able to approach the subject without it making us feel uncomfortable. You know, we have a group of Royal Enfield riders, and we get together once a week. We don't always all turn up, and all we do is talk about the motorbike. You know, we just talk about what we've done, what we're doing. And you know, for me, that's one of the most assuring things. I don't need to talk about how I'm feeling, or the difficulties, or the struggles of the week, or all of that good stuff. I'm literally just in amongst people talking. And you know, I'm so lucky like that, because I've got that group. There are other groups I'm part of as well, but this is musician on a motorbike, not musician on other things. Although it's mental health on a motorbike today, I suppose. But anyway, let's not digress. So I think that sometimes just talking about anything, just being involved is all it takes. The only thing I would say is that I think we've got a pandemic at the moment, and it's not a pandemic of a virus like we had with COVID. We have a pandemic of loneliness. Now, when you think of someone lonely, you think of someone on their own. It used to be the image of an elderly person. The family have all grown up and left home. They're too busy to visit her. The grandchildren are too busy at school, and the parents are too busy to take them round. So you end up with an elderly person who's very lonely, and that is a very true statement of fact. In fact, I remember a survey a few years ago I was reading. It was actually a document, not a survey. And it was basically, they interviewed an old lady, and they asked her how many people she saw each week. And when she answered the survey, she said, well, if that includes the people I see on telly, then I see lots of people. But when they spoke to her, it turns out she didn't see anybody. Her company was the telly and the people on the telly. So that's what we might typically see. But the truth is, loneliness isn't just about being isolated physically. It can be being isolated emotionally. You know, there's been some thoughts about this, and loneliness isn't just about being on your own. It can often be not being understood. You can get the young person surrounded by people at work or down a club or in a pub, but feeling totally and utterly isolated because they don't feel they're understood. So think about that. Just think about how can you get yourself out and about and involved with others. Maybe you need it, maybe you'll find it healthy, or maybe you could help someone else. Right, I think that brings me to the close of my discussion about mental health. There's lots more I could cover, but I just wanted to talk about those bits, about how you can help others and what you might be able to do. Now, the next subject I want to talk about is how you can help yourself. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to go for a little stroll and have a wander around here and see what's what, and we'll talk about how you might be able to help yourself in a moment. Okay. So there we are, we're all packed up and just about ready to get on the road. So, right, let's hit the road. Oh, that's nice. The air just flowing now. Beautiful. Absolutely lovely. Right. There's a couple of things I want to talk about helping ourselves, and it's obviously related to motorcycling because that's what this channel is about. There's two things that I want to encourage you to do. The first is letting go. Now, what I mean by that is we are almost trained through our lives to be goal setters. And there's nothing wrong with goals. They can help us personally, professionally, in many ways. But sometimes they become almost a habit. I'll even almost use the word addiction. I've known people who are just feeling lost because there is no goal, and they just think, oh, I need to be doing something. And, you know, I think the state of mind that I've seen them in, it's more often that they'd be better off not doing anything and actually really just appreciating and enjoying it. If you can't let go of doing anything, then maybe it is an addiction. And I think to have a bit of space and a bit of peace to just enjoy the freedom of life is something we need to retrain ourselves to do. If you look at the road ahead at the moment, I can't really see around the corner. I can't see what's coming, but I have to be careful. But it's the unknown. I have been down this road before, I won't pretend otherwise, but more often than not, taking a journey with no plan, with no map, is actually a way of letting go. Just enjoying the scenery, enjoying the view, and just enjoying the present moment. So that's my first reflection. Let go. Don't worry about the goals, just enjoy the view. Now my second, and what will be final reflection for today, is I want you to think about appreciating the present. We often find ourselves surfing the internet, watching YouTube videos, and all the while these subtle messages that are saying you need to buy this, you need to buy that. What about planning for this tomorrow? What about planning for that? It's almost like our lives are just not adequate as they are. We somehow need to be doing more and spending more to enjoy them, but the truth is that's very rarely the case, if ever. Appreciating what we have here and now is something that we could all do more of. We don't know how long our health will last. We don't know how long we'll be able to ride a motorbike. We don't know when the next pandemic will hit. So while you can get out, whether it's raining, grey clouds, or beautiful blue sky and sun like it is today, with the green trees in the fields, if you're in the right part of the UK that is of course, then just get out there and enjoy it. Enjoy and appreciate the present.